office in 1917, succeeding Senator Thomas Catron, who openly opposed recognizing women's rights to vote for decades. And whereas Senator Jones became chair of the Senate Select Committee on Women's Suffrage and successfully managed to move the amendment for women's suffrage, first introduced in 1878, onto the U.S. Senate floor, where it was finally approved in 1919 and sent to the states for ratification. And whereas New Mexico became the 32nd state to ratify the 19th Amendment in February 1920, with the support of Governor Octaviano Larrazolo of Las Vegas, in countless efforts by suffragists including Aurora Lucero of Las Vegas, Nina Otero Warren of Santa Fe, and many others. And I'm going to mention here that the United States Mint has minted a coin in honor of Nina Otero Warren. So look for those. Whereas the 19th Amendment was officially added to the U.S. Constitution on August 26, 1920, and whereas the pandemic prevented celebration of the 100th anniversary of the women's vote on August 26, 2020, and whereas Senator Jones became the only man recognized on the national votes for women's trail in 2020, and the only man to receive a Pomeroy marker in 2022, acknowledging his significant contribution to women's equality. And whereas the marker will be installed at the home he lived in while mayor of Las Vegas and U.S. Senator. And whereas Las Vegas recognizes the contributions made by Senator Jones and other leaders and honor the thousands who advocated for the rights for women as a hallmark of American democracy. Now therefore I, Louis A. Trujillo, Mayor of the City of Las Vegas, along with members of the governing body, hereby proclaim that the City of Las Vegas will ensure that the public learns about New Mexico's vital role in the women's suffrage movement and its commitment to equal rights for women and the civil rights of all of its residents. Louis A. Trujillo, Honorable Mayor.
Thank you, Barbara. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, councilors' reports.
Councilors? Mr. Montoya?
Just would like briefly thank our city manager, our city attorney, and everyone involved in today's distributions, especially all the employees and all the volunteers and all the donors. I think it was very, very successful. I heard a lot of comments throughout the whole day. It was televised, it came out on the news. I think we're moving forward in the right direction. Hopefully this won't be the last distributing event that we have. It was very well organized, Mr. Maestas, with our Sheriff's Department and also with our City Police directing traffic and so forth. A lot of good comments, Mr. Mayor, about what we did today as a whole, as a family, as a city. And I just want to thank all our employees and, again, the City of Las Vegas in general. Thank you.
And thank you for your help out there, you and Mr. Romero and everybody else who, Scott was there, and the police and the fire department handling the water. So thank you so much for your assistance as well.
I have a comment that I got from a constituent. She wrote, "I just got my water. The line was manageable, city workers polite and efficient. Please pass that along if you can. It was hard, hot work. Thank you." So on behalf of everybody in Las Vegas, I also want to say thank you for the work that you did today and are still continuing, I think, out there. It's a lot of work, but people are very happy that this is going on, and I want to commend everybody that was involved today, and will be again probably the next time that we have another water distribution event. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Casey. Mr. Romero?
I just can't add to what everyone has already said. Times like this, I'll be honest. I think speaking with you, we're kind of worried that things are going to be chaotic today. But everybody from within the city and every department, I don't think I've ever seen every single department work together the way they did today. And I can't thank all the employees enough. because without them, no complaints, no nothing, and the way things went, the line was all the way to Love's at one point, and we still were able to manage within 20-25 minutes to get them from Love's all the way through the line. So that alone says how everybody came together, and thank you, Leo, and all those that were involved. And I just want to throw this out there. Thank you to Betty from Global Citizen. During the fires, she came through with many semi-loads of wipes and stuff like that, and she said just continue to receive them. I think you remember what she said, and you probably going to need them, and lo and behold, we got our water shortage, and all that's going to help out. So without her encouraging us to continue to accept those semi-loads of donations, we probably wouldn't have had, we would have had water, but now we have wipes and some other stuff, so that was good. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Romero.
I might add that Councilman Romero did his duty today. We got our Phil from the Las Vegas Daily Optic to help us out today.
Oh, wow.
Good job.
I challenged him.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Oh,
That's great news.
too funny.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, we have our city manager's report, Mr. Leo Maestas.
Good evening, councilors and mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Maestas. Welcome. Thank you for the hard work that you're doing, Mr. Maestas.
I think it's, I was going to mention it in my presentation, but really the heroes for events like this are your employees, the City of Las Vegas employees, because without them, none of these types of events would take place, truly. Let's see if we can get this going here. Again, we'll start our presentation today with the welcoming of our new city employees to the City of Las Vegas with Mr. John Apulaca with Maintenance Worker 1 in our Public Facilities Department, Mr. Max Bustamante, also Maintenance Worker 1 in our Public Facilities, Beatriz Gallegos in our Animal Care Center Manager, as our Animal Care Center Manager, Gabriel Gomez, Adult Programs Coordinator with the Recreation Center, Mr. Joshua Hernandez, Collections Tech and Wastewater Department, Jason LaSalle, and Animal Care Technician, Leon Martinez, and the Wastewater Treatment Center in training, Miss Nicole Montaño as a new Firefighter 1, Fernando Montoya as a chore worker at our Senior Center, Mr. Charles Ortiz as a laborer in Public Works, and Mr. Wallace Sanchez is also Public Works Maintenance Worker 1. We welcome him to the City of Las Vegas and we wish them luck.
Can you tell us what exactly a chore worker is?
So there was a program that was offered to us by the Aging and Long-Term Services, not only chore worker, but there was another grant that was given to us. I can't remember the exact title. Chore worker is an individual that can go into the households and help the resident with any type of chores, ironing clothes, helping them with their firewood, helping them bring in their groceries, any of those types of things, and we're able to fund those types of positions. The other individual, I can't remember the exact title of that position, but was to help some of our aging community with electronics and navigating computer systems and helping them pay bills, those sorts of things. That's the other position. I can't remember the exact title for that position.
Is that through the Teen Years program?
It's through Aging and Long-Term Services. I don't know if there's another department that it's through, but that's where it was funded through.
Thank you.
And that's the first time we've had these positions?
First time, yes, sir.
In our community? Wonderful. It's good to hear.
Moving on to some of the updates on our projects, we have Great Blocks, as everybody knows, that they'll be substantially completed by the end of the month. And they'll have another 30 days to complete the punch list. North Gonzales water line is completed. We had some monies left over that we added some of our own city monies to be able to pave both lanes of the road instead of just paving one lane where the water line was done on the west lane. Moving on to West National, We're also going to be completing the paving of that in the next few weeks as well. There was a water line and new water connections to all the residents and commercial businesses in that area, so we're going to be moving forward with paving that portion of the road, which runs in front of the courthouse and Lady of Sorrows Church. Moving on to Camino De Las Cuellas, there was a little bit of misunderstanding, I believe, with CES. Obviously, we had to re-engineer because we acquired some of the property from the adjacent property owner. That was re-engineered. Everything's been through CES, and they will continue with the project on Monday morning.
CES.
CES stands for Consumer, is not...
Cooperative Educational
there you go,
Services.
Services. It's another avenue that we use for procurement. I'm sorry, Councilman.
It's a state agency that oversees those projects.
Yes, sir. Moving on, they will, and we want to express our apologies to the school district and some of the parents from the West School District that it's kind of been a burden for them to have to go around that project, but we're going to see if we can get that paved within a week's time, and then they can move on to the sidewalk on the west end of that project. Hot Springs sewer line and water line. The sewer line will be completed in about a month. There is some materials that are needed to finish the water line, and they're out close to 20 weeks on the water line. So we'll finish up the sewer line, we'll cover up what we've excavated until those other parts come in stock, and then we'll re-excavate it and finish that project. Again, we did receive $750,000 from CDBG funding to do the paving portion of that, which has already been engineered. We'll move forward with that once we finish the sewer and infrastructure project portions of the road. Moving on to some of the closed projects, Plaza and Bridge Street project has been closed out. Romero Salazar has been closed out. The DOT sewer lift station, detention center lift station, as well as DBIB lift stations are all completed. Those were big projects that the city was working on. We've also finished installing 3 new playground equipment. I know that was a big, a popular project that we've been working on. We're also going to complete some extended areas at Lincoln Park now that we have it closed off. Also in that portion of Lincoln Park, we already did demo the roof structure that was above the bandstand at Lincoln Park. We did have our public works staff go in and disinfect with pressure sprayers the bandstand along with a lot of the sidewalks in and around the Lincoln Park area. Lastly, I wanted to just kind of brief on our water situation that we're in. Again, we did do a water distribution site today. We gave out to over 2,314 households beginning this morning, and we did get cut off about 30 minutes this afternoon with the weather that came in on us. So we'd like to do this every Wednesday moving forward, at least for the next few months. FEMA said as long as you can get that water to your community, we'll keep bringing it to the community. So we want to keep that going. Again, that's going to be at the Inventory Recreation Center next Wednesday, the 24th, beginning at 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. or until resources are exhausted. Yes, ma'am.
Do you not plan to move around to different locations, or it will always be at the Inventory Center?
We would like to. We thought of doing that, ma'am. The problem is that the logistical hurdles that come with the traffic control and the amount of cars that come to an event like that, we don't have another city property anywhere else in the city that can do that. We've also reached out to our senior center manager, Ms. Wanda Salazar, to target her demographic. She has about 300 households that she delivers home meals to people that are homebound. We're going to be giving her allotment of water to be able to deliver to that demographic. And then we ask anybody else that falls into somebody that doesn't have transportation or any of those things, please communicate with the city, and we'll make arrangements to get some water to you.
Okay.
Again, we're going to do that weekly.
The reason I asked is because I just now thought of it, I did receive 2 texts this afternoon from parents who were complaining and asked if we could get the police out to the area by Sierra Vista and Los Niños, because the traffic was backed up that far and they couldn't pick up their kids. And so maybe when you do the distribution again next week, you can make sure that that stays open so the parents can pick up their children after school.
Yes, ma'am. We figured that we were gonna identify some voids in our planning, and then we'll try to iron those out as we move forward in the next events. Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Moving on to the amount of water the city has, we currently have around 36 days of treated water right now. Again, the amount of water in Story Lake has not changed. It's still over 155 million gallons. We are awaiting the pretreatment system to arrive. Some of those components will be arriving in the next 5 to 7 days. Again, it'll take them about a week and a half to plumb it in and get everything going. But that's where we're at as far as days of water that we have right now. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, Leo, and I know what the answer is, but I don't think the public would. We were given a timeline of 50 days, and then, it's been, more than 2 weeks, but we have 35, and that's because consumption has been lowered, so that gives us more days. So could you kind of explain that, just so the public knows, we understand that, but.
Again, the city of Las Vegas already uses by far less than any other comparable city, which we're around 50 gallons per person per day. The city of Las Vegas residents and businesses have pulled back on some of the consumption, so the more we do that, the more time we buy in the amount of water we have in storage. One of the main reasons we want to give water to the community is to put it into their hands so that the users won't go to the tap to be able to drink, which will also add days to the amount of water we have in our system. So that's the biggest portion of why we want to give the water to the community. So hopefully that clarifies it to the community. I stand for any other questions, Councilor?
Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Maestas, so we distributed a lot of bottles today. Can we set up somewhere in the community a big trash bin where people can recycle them and just throw nothing but the plastic bottles into that container?
I'd like to set up something, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Would that be something that we could look into so that we can keep it away from, I don't know what the regulations are at the landfills or what in Wagon 1, but maybe we can do something like that on that?
Yes, sir. We were definitely trying to communicate with some of either Santa Fe or Albuquerque to see if we can coordinate just recycling of those plastic items. We're obviously getting a lot more plastic items into the community right now with the bottled water. I believe we gave out, or we had today, close to 8,000 cases of water, which equates to about 4 cases per household today that we gave out. So that's going to be a lot of extra plastic into our system, and we'll try to coordinate that. Yes, sir.
Thank you. And the other thing
Excuse me, can I add to what you're saying?
Go ahead.
Okay. Martin Suazo, who is a Las Vegas resident, is very much involved with a factory that transforms plastic bottles into
Fuel.
gas. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
And so maybe we could work out something with him. And they have another plant going up in Albuquerque, so we could send those there to get recycled, and that way we don't have plastic all over the place. So, sorry for the interruption, but I thought of that as you were speaking.
The other question, not question, but we are having an informational meeting for Legion Drive project for next year. And is that on Thursday?
I believe that's tomorrow at the Duke's Fire Station on Legion, yes, sir. That's with our engineer to go over the plans, and if anybody from the community has any input to add to that, that would be the time to bring it forth.
Okay, and that consists of the project between 7th Street and Grand Avenue on Legion Drive. So I welcome the schools and anybody in that neighborhood that it might affect. This will be a $1.4 million project, and we did everybody's input before we finalize the drawings on that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I do have a question, and maybe I know you and Maria both have the answer, but how close are we to a permanent filtration system on the river?
So Maria gave me some information today and we've been looking at this for weeks now, because we didn't want to only be able to treat the amount of water we had in the lake. We wanted to be able to treat the water that's coming down the river. Maria, if you want to give some high-level information of where we're going with the research.
Mayor and Council, we are already in communication with an engineer and FEMA and other entities on planning, designing, installing, and funding. The first one will probably be a temporary one as well. Those are going to be quicker than a permanent one. Permanent treatment plants for a temporary system or for a small system are still going to be 6 months to a year minimum for design. So construction after that can be another 6 months to a year after that, depending on the complexity of the system. So it's quicker to get the components together to be able to do some sort of pre-treatment system. So that's what we will be doing up in the canyon as well, working towards another temporary pre-treatment system that we can build from, so we can get that on the ground, get it moving, and then go to the permanent systems in the ideal locations. Part of what we're going to learn from both of these pre-treatment systems at Story and at the river is where is the ideal location. Story is still the ideal location for that particular source of water, but it may be a different location for the one up in the canyon, whether it can be at the water treatment plant or farther up. We'll learn from that.
Thank you. Please keep us updated on both projects. I guess there's a little frustration in the fact that the one that's coming in now has taken so long. And I know it was a quick procurement and everything, but the public is waiting for that information, so thank you. Go ahead.
Also, lastly, this last column here, that's the article that will be in this Friday's optic. If there's any other information that you'd like to add to that.
What does it have? I'm sorry, I just can't.
So the top reads Water Conservation Awareness Update, obviously Friday's date. The first thing we have on there now, which was on the bottom of the last advertisement, is next Wednesday's water distribution site. It goes into some of the language of how much water we have in supply, raw water versus treated water in storage. And then it has on the bottom conservation ideas. That's a document that Maria and her staff put together and went door to door to disseminate some of those ideas that people can help us with conservation.
Does it have anything about the temporary filtration system?
No, sir. This actually, no, it does not. I apologize. No, it does not. But
can we include that in every week's update?
Yes, sir.
Please, thank you.
Can I just?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Casey?
I believe that there's some confusion as to how much water each household can use. I did get a couple of phone calls yesterday and the day before, people asking me to please explain how much water they can use. And I said it was 44 gallons per day per household of 3 or more. And they said that they had been told that it was 44 gallons per person per day for a household of 3 or more. So which is it?
I don't want to misquote that, so I'll have Ms. Gilroy give us the exact language on that.
The language from the drought contingency plan
Yes.
is 4,000 gallons or 44 gallons per person per day. The 4,000 gallons is to show what an average would be, but to be very specific with the community, because not everybody has the same size household, it's 44 gallons per person per day. So a 3-person household would be right around 4,000 gallons, and any household larger than that would have the additional volume.
Okay, that's not what the stage 7 restrictions say on the internet. It says it says 4,000 gallons per month or 44 gallons per household for a household of 3 or more.
On
So that
the
was,
city's website or the,
it was on the utilities website.
I'll take a look at that.
Yeah, please do, because it's creating a lot of confusion, and so, okay.
Sure. How much, what?
You know, just informational wise for the publics, you know, sometimes it gets frustrating because people want us to answer questions to specific issues that we can't answer in a paragraph or in a small conversation, because the issues are larger than us. You know, when we start talking about water, we're talking about storage, we're talking about city water sources, we're talking about the Taylor wells, we're talking about pre-treatment systems, we're talking about drought contingency conservations, we're talking about water rights, we're talking about different stuff. We can go down the line. And it gets complicated with ordinances, with contracts, with MOUs, with, you know, the rest of it. So it's not an easy thing to answer a question off the bat. I mean, when I start talking to people about water, it takes me at least 3 hours to have them get a good picture of what we're talking about. You know, we've taken a lot of people through our system to show them, from the governor's office to the media and so forth, so that they can get a brighter, closer picture as to what's going on in the city of Las Vegas. And I thank staff and Maria for taking the time to do that. And that's time away from their daily work, but it's important. But I ask that all citizens look into our city website and also to the City of Las Vegas Utilities website for the best information. We do have a 50-year water plan. We do have a 5-year water plan. We have a comprehensive plan. We have different plans that we're studying and we're looking at. There's that one that was created at Highlands with the county. It was a regional water plan. So it's a lot more complicated than what we think. And I tell you, I thank staff, mayor and council for tackling these issues and these problems and what we're encountering now the way we are. Every day is a challenge, and every day is we look for new answers. And as far as financing, I mean, come on, don't ask, you know, what is the federal government doing? You know, because they're doing a lot. FEMA is here, they're helping us out. The governor's office, we've met with their staff and the governor plenty of times. They know what we need. They know the end result of the day is that we need water for our citizens. And we're trying the best to not run out of water. But meanwhile, I know we've asked since the year 2000, because we've been in droughts. We've asked the citizens to be in different stages of water restrictions, and they have been great. I think Las Vegas has the best ordinance for restrictions in stages comparison to what water we have. And we're a role model for other cities and other states. But I tell you, our citizens are in with us, and that's how we're doing this distributing and this help out here and there, so that we won't use that water in our faucets, so that we can have a day or two extra. So all these are in preparation for the worst. So we ask that you trust us. I trust our staff, all of them. They know the importance. They know their job role. From HR to police to solid waste, everybody knows their job. Mr. Maestas has a meeting with his staff every week to get together and find out what's going on, how they can help each other, and how we move the city forward. New ideas, new information, it's there. I've attended those meetings. I put full trust on Mr. Maestas and his staff and the city employees for everything that they're doing with this water situation. And we did pass through a pandemic, the same thing. You know, our mayor was a good leader through all that, and council did a good job, and staff did an awesome job. Maybe some citizens didn't like it, but we had to do what we had to do for protecting our citizens. And we'll do the same now. Mr. Maestas has gotten together with the colleges, with the schools, and he's let them know where we're at, and they got a business or a school to run, and they have to make decisions also. So, you know, we're all in this together, and we're all trying to put our forces together, and we're spending millions and millions of dollars to solve this problem. And the money is coming in. I mean, it will be reimbursable from the feds, from the state. And we're looking at grants, we're looking at small interest loans, and we're looking at all that. big picture. So it might seem like we're not doing much, but I'll tell you, we're busy 24/7. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Maestas. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, we have our police chief's report.
Okay.
Antonio Salazar.
Evening, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Mr. Salazar. Welcome.
Okay, we're going to start with our Field Operations Division, which is patrol, which includes animal control. We had 14 calls for service. I'll go over the main ones. 55 arrests were made. So I know one of the important ones that has been in the past were the burglary reports and the burglary calls. So those 7 burglary calls, officers did go to them, but only out of those 7, 2 were actually reported because there was either no individual found on the property, or somebody had called and said that there was a loud noise at their neighbor's house. The officers went over there, they didn't find anybody, so that's the reason why there's 2. We had 368 traffic citations. A lot of those, I'll tell you guys, that were speeding. That's from our data collection on those signs. We collected the data, we went to those areas that they were at, and we kind of enforced those areas. And some of these operations here reflected that. We had STEP on July 1st and STEP on July 26th.
What does that mean?
So that's the selective traffic enforcement. So that goes anywhere between click it or ticket, seatbelt, cell phone, speeding, specifically just those traffic violations. And then we had an NDWI enforcement strictly for DWI saturation patrol. And I believe you guys are aware of the roadblock that we had earlier this week. So community events, we had Fiestas de Vegas, Rough Rider Motorcycle Rally, Al Frescos, we had those each Friday. Victory Life Church, we had a back to school giveaway. Officers did attend that, and we helped out the Victory Life Church pass out backpacks and other stuff for school. And we also attended the funeral services for our fallen officers for the helicopter crash. Code compliance and code enforcement, we had 165 calls for service. And I'll go down to 31 citations were issued. And also, it's not reflected here, but a lot of complaints were overgrowth complaints in alleys and yards. So these individuals, they got together, they submitted like a warning / notice to each of those residents, and they're still conducting follow-ups. And that went from everywhere. That went from all the way to the north end of town, all the way down to the south end of town. So a lot of residents got served with those warnings and notices on overgrowth and cleanliness of their yards. We had, for our animal control, we had 107 calls for service, 3 citations. So as of right now, we have 13 dogs that are in our animal care center and 18 cats that are in our animal care center. And we have 1 animal cruelty case pending.
What are we doing with the pets?
So right now, we're trying to get everything squared away so we can start adopting pets. Also, there's some entities that are reaching out, some in Colorado, are outside, I guess, animal shelters that are wanting to do a transfer for some of the animals that we have.
We're not euthanizing.
We're not euthanizing.
Thank you.
Yes.
What's our capacity there?
So we have 13 dogs and 18 cats.
Well, what's the capacity of the place?
So the capacity for, I believe there's 32 dog kennels, and there is close to 30 cat spaces. So our information, which is our records division, 133 incident reports were entered into the Tyler system. I'll just go to the important ones. 424 citations were entered into the system as well. 427 offense incidents and traffic accidents reports were scanned into the system as well. And we are continuing to work on destruction orders and sealed juvenile records by district court. We also had a records employee who did the McGruff. That's our dog suit, our police mascot. For our communications dispatch center, we had 714 incoming 911 calls, 664 were answered. So I know this was a question also. For those 50 abandoned 911 calls, officers still attended to each of those addresses and to the areas where those were pinged, and the dispatcher made an attempt to call those callers back. So we had 1,719 police calls, 237 fire calls, 225 medic calls, and 165 code compliance calls. Our street crimes and investigation and narcotics division. I'm going to go to the search warrants. We executed 14 search warrants within the month of July. And we'll see here in the next slide for some of those items that were seized in those search warrants and even on patrol. And we'll go down to the firearms, which is a very important one. 15 total firearms were seized. They were illegally, they had them illegally, or they were involved in some either a crime or they were taken in for evidence. So, and also the fentanyl pills, 26 pills and 2 pills from investigations were seized. Our street crimes unit for the street crimes week, they responded to 33 calls for service. And our training and travel, so mandatory basic officer training, that's the pre-assessment for the academy, which is Erica Garcia. She is currently in the academy right now. And this next one, dealing with mental health training, thanks to the mayor, we were able to get this training for our officers. We did actually have a lot of feedback from the public. Related to that training, for whenever we deal with individuals regarding mental health, we had several individuals call into the office and said that they saw this training take place, but they heard this training being advertised, and they actually congratulated our officers for attending this training. Firearms Instructor course, we had Officer King attend that. He is now we have 2 firearms instructors in the police department currently. We hired, Mr. Maestra, city manager, he mentioned the animal care center manager with Beatrice, and they were at the last council meeting before, I think 2 council meetings, and our animal care technician, which is Jason LaSalle. And then this goes again to our basic academy class, which was Erica Garcia. We interviewed for the month. This one was for a lieutenant and for the promotion process.
How many animal control technicians do we have?
We currently have 1, but our animal control so we have, and we'll see in the next one too, we have 3 animal control officers vacancies, but we just filled 2. And our animal control officers are
an additional 2, or
so right now, as we sit right now, we only have 1 vacancy in animal control officer. But as far as the technician, we have 2 vacancies. But I was saying the animal control officers are going and helping out the animal care center for anything, and some of the admin staff are going in the morning to help out with with cleaning and moving stuff around for the animals. So here are our vacancies. Like I said, this animal control officer, it's down to one now. We just currently did interviews and sent over letters for recommendation for hire. So we have 2 animal control officers right now. So I stand for any questions from the mayor and council.
Mr. Romero?
Chief, I just want to, commend you and your staff, and especially with all the criticism and everything that you were given pertaining to the animal care center, and what has transpired, and the proof that we were never going to turn into a kill center, which was totally false, and those that continue to spread the lies, I hope are actually opening their eyes and seeing what's happening. I want to add to that is, I know you already had interviews for some of these positions. It's just a matter of going through the process. Is that correct?
Yes.
So within 1 month, you were able to fill these positions. We have a couple, pending. I know that, but to say about it in a month and a half, we've never filled these positions as fast as we have. So there was more issues to that, and I think we've cleaned them up. And I think being there and the trust, being that she's a person that really cares about animals in our community, I think that's important. What's discouraging is that those that still try to throw, the animal care center under the bus. And I hope they're opening their eyes and seeing that, this council and this administration has been always for the animals. At the end of the day, there's accountability to it, and some people have issues with accountability. But I think from what I see right now, and if you don't mind mentioning also some of the trainings and that you're working on, I know with HR and Workforce Solutions, and training that some of these individuals never had before, and you're working on that. So, all kudos to what you're doing with the city manager and D, and good things are coming. And the good part is that we see with some of the calls, more calls are coming in, and the trust is beginning through the community. So I just want to say thank you, Dee and her staff. And as soon as we fill those 7 positions, I'd like to bring them in, and I don't think we've had so many people involved and wanting to be involved in animal control or in the center itself. And that's positive to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Romero. Ms. Casey?
Thank you. I want to thank Chief Salazar, because I've always had a really good relationship with the police chiefs that we've had. And my family was involved in law enforcement, and my uncle's name is on the police station building. So I grew up with my dad cleaning his gun at the kitchen table and telling us, do not ever touch it, and that kind of thing. So I have a soft spot for police officers, but I really want to commend Antonio Salazar, because he is so responsive. I send him texts all the time about all kinds of stuff, and I don't have to wait days for a response. He responds right away. He gives me a reasonable response, an answer to what is going on, so that I'm aware, so that when people call me, I can say, yes, the police are aware of this. They're going to take care of it according to the law. Don't worry about it. It's going to get taken care of. And so I'm very happy that I can do that for constituents who are concerned about a particular issue, whatever it may be. And I really appreciate that from Chief Salazar. And so I want to say thank you again, and I'll keep saying thank you, until the day you stop, then I'll probably not be so nice, but I know that day's not ever going to come. And so I'm very happy that we have a good working relationship, and I appreciate you and your officers, and I want you to know that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salazar.
Mr. Salazar, Chief, So what's a follow-up, what's a update or follow-up on the ordinance that we passed on RV parks, parked on city parks and so forth? Have signs been ordered, or is there any enforcement being done?
There is, and I believe that, so the RVs around any parks have been removed. I know that there was an issue a little bit after that, but since then, we have been enforcing. We've more given warnings right now, and then once we start continuing to see that after warnings, then we'll start doing citations. But as of right now, there shouldn't be any RVs or those types of vehicles parked around our parks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Salazar. I appreciate your time and good work, and congratulations to your team.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, we have our finance report. We have Dominic Chavez, our interim finance director.
Good evening, Mayor and
Hi,
Council.
Dominic. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Yes, sir. I'm here to present the finance report for July 2022, first month of fiscal year 2023. In the general fund, our revenues came in at 6%, $900,831. As well as our expenditures at 6%, $1,034,215, which gives us a deficit for the month of $133,385. Our enterprise funds revenues came in at 7% of $1,191,330, with our expenditures at 5% of $938,299, which gives us a surplus of $253,030. Our recreation department revenues come in at 5%, and I would like to mention that $35,000 of that is a transfer in from the general fund, and our expenditures at 3%, so $30,335, giving us a surplus of $10,790. On our lodger's tax, revenues are in at 9%, and $64,241, with our expenditures at 8% of $60,812, provides us a surplus of $3,429. And with that, I'll stand for any questions here.
Mr. Chavez, are you worried about anything in this report that you need to let us know about?
No, sir.
Thank you, sir. And I appreciate all the work that you're doing in your team.
Yeah.
I know that you've stepped up out of your position to do this, and Darlene's helping you, and you have a good team working, and I can't thank you enough for stepping up. We got an email today that our budget had been accepted
Yes, sir.
from DFA, and congratulations on that. That's a big thing for you and your team, so please congratulate your team and know that we appreciate you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dominic.
Thank you all.
Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, we have our presentations, not to exceed 10 to 15 minutes per person. Presentation by Tree Board Chair Dr. John Spencer and Vice Chair Gerald Romero, reporting on the activities and results of the past year, Tree City certification, and upcoming future goals.
Welcome, Dr. Spencer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm John Spencer, and I'm the chair of the Tree Board in the city of Las Vegas. And the Tree Board is a volunteer outfit, and we serve at the pleasure of the mayor and the council. And I'm here to talk to you a little bit, just to acquaint you with who we are and what we do, why we do it, and then start the introduction to what we think would be nice for the future. So, as I said, we're a volunteer committee, and we believe that we have the right people at the table. We have forestry professionals. Gerald Romero's not here tonight, but he's the head of the Tierra Montes Soil and Water Conservation District. Shannon Atencio, our state forester, has been amazingly busy for quite some time, and we hope she gets a chance to sleep sometime soon. But she's a very good liaison with us, between us and this New Mexico State Forestry Urban and Community Forestry Program. We've had a pretty good history with those people, and over the years, at no financial cost to the city, we've done over $200,000 worth of work over the years. we have, I think, did you put these up? Okay.
I did.
You can take a look at this. It's got the stuff you need to know about us. And so I'm not going to talk a whole lot about that stuff. But we partner with the city, and Stephen Oliver and Arnold Lopez, Public Works and Parks and Rec, are members of the committee. So we have good communication with the city. Most recently, we helped do some evaluation with respect to the Lincoln Park improvements. And at the request of Mr. Lopez, we started taking a look at inventory of condition of street trees and sidewalks. In this case, we just wanted to show him what we do and how we do it. And so we did 6th Street between Baca and Friedman. And I don't know if you've walked over there, but you're lucky to still be standing if you went down that sidewalk. So those kind of things. And what we do, our mission really is to help the city plan and plant and protect and renew the city forest. And when I talk about the city forest, I'm talking about street trees and park trees. I'm not talking about trees on private property. We don't have any jurisdiction over that kind of stuff. In fact, we just smile and salute and give recommendations. And our goals are, the first is to improve the safety conditions in our city. And that means removing hazardous limbs and dead trees, hazardous trees. We do that. We remove hazards. The second thing is to try to preserve the legacy of the trees that we have. We can talk for a long time about the state and condition of our forest. There's some of that in the handout. But our main trees are Siberian elm, and without putting too fine a point on it, they're on the noxious weed list of the state of New Mexico, Class C. And the reason for that, besides thousands and thousands of little elm seedlings every place, is that they're not really very good at wind, and they're not really very good at snow load. But on the other hand, they'll grow just about any place, and they give you shade.
Yeah.
And there's an old Chinese proverb that says that one generation plants the trees, and another generation gets the shade. And we got the shade because our ancestors, our forefathers and foremothers did that for us. And the community forest is aging out. It's well past its expected life expectancy. We can keep going for longer by doing remedial pruning. And so we remove hazards. Second, we work on trying to preserve the legacies that we have of trees. And you can see the results of things like of those kinds of things in numerous parks, and they're mentioned in the handout as well. But I take a look at Plaza. Take a look at Lincoln Park. We've I believe, prolonged the lives of trees quite a bit there, and planted a bunch. In Lincoln, we put in over 30 trees. That brings us to the idea of renewing the forest. And it's going to sound awfully simplistic, but if you're not going to water trees, there's not really a whole lot of sense in planting them. And so, in addition, when I talk about renewing the forest, and I'll give some specifics here in a second, it depends upon a city commitment to water. And that is a difficult proposition, really, especially when you don't have a lot of personnel to do the job, and you got a small water tank to go around, and you have to do things like traffic control and those sorts of things. Effluent water has been supplied to basically all of our core parks, and it's a great idea, but it does have some kind of drawbacks. And Stephen brought me, and we've seen these before, but these are sprinkler heads. And these are sprinkler heads for the irrigation systems. And I invite you to take a look in the bottom of these things. And you will see that there's all kinds of crud in them. little pieces of plastic, and these things cost about $90 a piece. And so what we're saying is that it's great to use effluent water, but the quality of the effluent water needs to get improved. And I don't really know how you go about it, but the particulates need to be reduced. Because you're gonna, this is the sprinkler head. You can imagine what this does to drippers.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the first thing. And the second thing about the water.
Dr. Spencer, has there been an assessment as to how many of the heads need to be replaced and where?
I don't, Stephen?
We have enough to replace at all 4 parks. We've done that, and it's just a matter of probably averaging 4 to 5 per month in each park.
And you're doing them as they give out, or?
We went in and replaced most of them, and then as they go out, those ones that Dr. Spencer's showing you, we didn't even get a full season lifespan on them. What happens is the material gets in there, it then burns out the gears, and then it's no good.
Is there a different model that we can use that's better?
That's the top of the line right there.
Are you serious? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I guess the question on that, wouldn't it be the effluent system should be catching that?
Yes, so that means we need to do some more improvement at our effluent system, make sure we're taking this more of the particles out.
Have you seen these?
I've talked to Steve before about it, and we are working on improving that. We have this filtration that is supposed to be taking out the small particles.
The other problem that happens occasionally is the availability of effluent water at all. And so for the past, I believe, around 5 weeks, there hasn't been the capability to put effluent water on trees that need it. So that's basically just to illustrate that if you're going to plant trees, you're going to have to commit to watering them weekly, basically, for 2 or 3 years. And what it seems logical to me, and we have done a bunch of cooperation with grants and over the years, and it looks like we need something like it's called a water tender. It's basically a truck with a giant 1,000-gallon tank on it and a pump, and then all of a sudden things get efficient. One person can handle that rather than 3 or 4 with the trailers and the other things. And they're expensive.
We don't have one that we could be using?
No, sir, not currently of that size anyways. We have smaller 200-300 gallon tanks.
How about utilities?
For affluent water, I don't believe so. But we can work on that definitely.
But basically, we're just saying, we're going to recommend and actually ask for you to consider a long-term plan to renew the forest, and that involves, water and its availability. We have done extensive inventories. If you look in here, there's going to be some maps, a whole bunch of circles on them. And those are tree inventories that we're doing, and they're ongoing. And we've done a couple of thousand trees. And we think that the city forest is probably between 2,000 and 3,000 trees. And if we want to commit to replacing the forest every 50 years, which I think is a reasonable goal, then you're talking about putting 50 or 60 trees in every year. And to get the tree that we planted, Arbor Day planting in Veterans Park, that's about $200. And so at $200 a tree, we're looking at $10,000 to $12,000 a year. And I want to take just a second to praise the mayor and council for putting, for the very first time in the history of this town, as far as I know, we've been at this for 25 years, an actual line item of dollars for taking care of tree issues, and it's $15,000. So right there's enough money to buy those trees. Unfortunately, that's not the only expense that goes with doing it. You got to plant them, you got to water them, you got to prune them, And so you're going to need a more commitment financially to accomplish this kind of a goal. It's really that simple. We have a good relationship with the Urban and Community Forestry Program, and they have told us a couple of times that one of the things that would really help Las Vegas is what's called a forest management plan, where you actually think in terms longer than a year or two. And so we've been encouraged to develop a grant proposal to support getting that a management plan in place. And so that's one of the things that we would like to do. And we've had great cooperation with Mr. Maestas in helping prepare grants to the Urban and Community Forestry Program. And they like us pretty well. They actually like Shannon. And so I mentioned the water. I mentioned the need for a water tender. There's another piece of equipment. It's not much. It's $2,000-3,000, and it's called a stump grinder. And what we do is when we remove a tree, we just whack it off at ground level. And if you're going to try to underplant or replant in the same area where you're taking trees out, then what you can do is this thing is just got a bunch of teeth on it, and you can tear out that stump down below ground level and make it reasonable to plant a tree there. So I'd say that Public Works and Parks and Recreation would need a water tender and a stump grinder. We're willing to try to do that. I'm just trying to identify the needs. The most practical thing I'm going to ask that members of the council do is we need wider community participation. We've got the right professionals, but we don't have a whole ton of representation of just town folks that are interested in the forest. And I would plead with you as councilors, if you could identify somebody in your ward that would be willing to come to our meetings, and that's 1 hour a month, and the last Tuesday, we would welcome them, and we'd like to get some folks that would be interested in participating in this. So if you could, I would certainly appreciate it if you could find somebody in your ward that would help us get the word out and participate in our activities. I think that should just about take care of me. I've mentioned the support. We think that probably the amount of, if you want to support to buy the trees, plant them, pruning, remove them. In terms of pruning, the parks people and streets, they got a lift. Okay, they can go up to about 25 feet, but there's a whole bunch of stuff higher than that, and there you have to hire contractors. And so we think that what we would really like is to suggest that you think about and hopefully decide favorably about is to put about $50,000 a year into this forest restoration. And talking with some folks, it seems like that's kind of about the amount it costs to hire one person if you get the fringe benefits and all that stuff involved with it. And so to me, I mean, it's a lot of money. There's no doubt about that. And by the way, we talk about water shortage and critical nature of that. The best time to plant is in the fall. And so I'm hoping we'll be more or less past the water crisis by then. I know it's kind of here I am coming up here asking you to do all these things and there's no water. Yeah.
Dr. Spencer, when will you give us those recommendations that you just asked for? Or
yeah, they're in there.
Okay.
This was prepared long enough ago that we were asking for the establishment of a line item in the budget.
Yeah.
But the other stuff is right toward the back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate all the work that you do. Please give my regards to your team. And my warm regards to Martha as well.
Oh, you bet.
Please tell her I said
right back at you.
Tell her hello for
me.
me.
That's for sure.
Yes.
But if you just let me ask you to take a little peek toward the back, about 3 pages from the back. There's all this stuff that I talked about, really, pretty much. But there's a table in there that shows you the condition of the forest, and the basic conclusion of it is like 80% of our forest is in need of mitigation or replacement. And if we don't do something about it in 15 or 20 years, we're going to lose a whole bunch of the forest. And I don't know if you remember those ancient pictures of the plaza, but I don't think we want to go back to that field of dirt with a wagon in the middle to hang people, you know. So anyway, it's time for us to step up and take our responsibility to the future seriously, and we're thankful that somebody did that 50 years ago for us.
Thank you. Brief questions, please, if we have any.
Dr. Spencer, I had that on my notes here about a grinder, but if you get a hold of me on my City of Las Vegas website, I'll be willing to represent my ward in your tree committee.
Okay.
I'll go to your meetings.
Great. We'd love to have it. Just to let you know, it's 3:30 in the afternoon on the last Tuesday of the month, so it's only 10 meetings a year.
Where do you meet?
Huh?
Where do you meet?
Right now, we're meeting in the rec center, and it's well, it's working out great. We finally, after a couple of years of basically not getting much done, we're now meeting in person, and we started to do projects, and that's made the crew feel better. So we're getting outside. We also think it's nice if recruits have shovels, and that'll help when you participate in our activities.
Got a couple of them.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Spencer.
You bet.
We appreciate your time.
Oh, we appreciate your help.
And call on us whenever you need us.
Well,
You do great work.
well, thanks so much. We're very pleased at the direction that the city's taking, and we would love to see it come to fruition, this part of stuff come to fruition. But thanks for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Dr. Spencer.
Mayor and Council, before you move on, in speaking with Dr. Spencer months ago, we asked him to identify the top 10 hazardous trees. We went ahead and already removed those 10 trees, took care of those, and they're identifying the next 10 trees that are on that list of hazards, so we can mitigate those ones as well.
Yeah, the cooperation from Parks and Rec and from Public Works has been outstanding. So
Thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Thank them for doing it.
Yeah.
We just stand there and say, would you please do these things? And it's very nice when they get it.
Thank you, Dr. Spencer. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, we have our consent agenda, items 1 through 4.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero, second by Ms. Casey. Roll call, please.
Councilor Montoya?
Yes.
Councilor Romero?
Yes.
Councilor Casey?
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, second by Councilor Casey. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Just for the record, Mr. Mayor, all those went through the Utilities Committee and were recommended.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, moving on to our business items. Our first is presentation and review of New Mexico Main Street Program by Eduardo Martinez, head of the Organization and Leadership Development for New Mexico Main Street. And
Thank you.
attached to that, we also have request renewal of the biennial memorandum of understanding between New Mexico Main Street, City of Las Vegas, and Main Street de Las Vegas, and approval of the Resolution 2237. And we also have our Community Development Director, Ms. Amy Weiser, is presenting.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor Trujillo, members of the council. Just wanted to provide a quick overview of the Main Street program. I know that the MOU is on the agenda today for approval. A little bit of background. So I'm, as the city clerk mentioned, I am the Organizational Development Director for New Mexico, specialist for New Mexico Main Street. I usually provide technical assistance support to local programs around contracts, the MOUs, the board development, and other operational issues. The Main Street program is in 30 communities around the state. New Mexico Main Street is housed in the Economic Development Department and authorized by the National Main Street Center as well. So we have 30 Main Street communities, 12 arts and cultural districts, and another 24 communities that are engaging the Native American, urban corridor and frontier initiative programs, and that's kind of their pathway to become a Main Street program as well. In each community, the Main Street program has to reside or is defined within their work is defined within a district. and Las Vegas has the second largest one in the state, next to downtown Albuquerque, by what number of assets in the district, business assets that they're working with. And so in downtown Albuquerque, we know that their assets are vertical as well. And so in each community, there's a three-way partnership between the state of New Mexico and New Mexico Main Street Program, the local government, and in some communities it's the county government, and then the local Main Street Program. The Main Street Program also has a responsibility of bringing in the community stakeholders into the community economic development work as well. It is an asset-based approach, a bottom-up approach, and really is probably, for many of the rural communities in New Mexico, the most important one, especially when they don't have the assets or the infrastructure to support industry or economic-based economic development projects as well. Their partnership is really codified by two documents, and so the first one is the MOU that is in the packet that is presented to you. The MOU basically spells out the expectations of the city partner, the state program, and the local Main Street program in that process as well. The Main Street program has to go through an annual review and accreditation process as well, following the standards of the National Main Street Center. The MOU also spells out in the attachment the minimum requirements. It's on page 6, minimum funding requirements of the local government partner, and that's usually based on the size of the community. Those are set by the National Main Street Center as well. So the MOU is basically the philosophical commitment between the three partners to work together to revitalize your Main Street district as well. The second document, which is next on your agenda, is usually the scope of services contract between the city and the Main Street program locally. While New Mexico Main Street is not a party to those, is not part of the execution of those contracts, we often help the local program with working through the details of the scope of services in those as well, right? And so the first piece of the MOU is the philosophical agreement. Everybody binds everybody to their partnership and the work. And then the second one is the contract that really binds the Main Street program in a scope of services to your economic development work inside the district as well. And so I think that's the basic overview of what I wanted to say. I want to take a moment to thank the city for being a long-standing partner. Las Vegas is one of the oldest Main Street communities in the state. I think the second oldest one, second only to Silver City. And so, long-standing partner. I want to take a moment to thank the staff and the board and the volunteers, particularly Main Street Las Vegas, for continuing to focus on revitalizing businesses in the downtown district as well. Main Street focuses on 4 points: economic vitality, design, which includes public infrastructure and green spaces, the promotion work, and then the organization work as well. I also want to thank City Manager Maestas and Community Development Director Amy Weiser for helping working with the Main Street organization and move through some of the challenges, particularly around the performance issues and the contract of the last couple of years. We know that the city always has many difficult decisions to make in the allocation of their financial resources, and also needs to be accountable to the public in the use of those as well. The state has to do that as well. And so we're happy to be a partner with Las Vegas for so long. We hope that you're ready to continue the partnership, and I would be willing to answer any questions you might have about either the MOU and stand ready when the contract comes up for discussion to answer any questions.
Thank you. I'll entertain brief questions or comments at this time. We have an agenda to go through.
What's brief, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead. Thank you.
So, I'd like just to add a couple of questions on the MOU that I don't know if it's been brought to your attention. I know I have questioned it. Item F on the Main Street of Las Vegas contract. It says maintain a minimum operating budget relevant to the size of the community, and I just want to kind of get your feel on this. We know that it's $35,000, but the duty of an organization and any board is also to fundraise and do that and not solely depend on the city on any municipality or anything for that funding. Am I correct? Is that kind of the way it's intended?
That is correct. And you will notice that the footnote at the bottom of that table, which is at the top of page 7 of 10, basically says, note, the minimum amount provided by the city is usually not enough to move the work forward. So usually when I prepare the contracts, and you'll see in the contract there's the core services, that's usually what the minimum amount pays for in the core services. And then there's an additional service piece that gets negotiated every year between the Main Street program and the city around here's our joint projects and priorities we want to take on. And then additional funding would come for that in sort of the additional services. But yes, it is not only New Mexico Main Street's expectation, it's the National Main Street Center's expectation that the organization also take on fundraising.
And the reason why I bring that up only is because it's been presented to us that, we need to get paid, I don't get paid with that money, but at the end of the day, there's a board, that should be, raising those additional funds, and it shouldn't come at the mercy if we're having, we've had issues in the past. This last time we had to hold some funding. We shouldn't be at the mercy of, somebody might not get paid or something like that, because that's the sole duty of the board to raise money, to make sure that their fiscal, they have the fiscal to cover things like that and not depend again, on any organization. They shouldn't come to the city and say, we need that money. We want a partnership, but at the end of the day, as you mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned it, thank you, Eduardo, is that, just as your organization, you guys have audits, your compliance you have to deal with, the city has those, and that's the only issue that I have had, is that at the end of the day, any audit findings that come, from any organization, we have to answer for. The audit doesn't say Main Street, it doesn't say another organization, it says City of Las Vegas, and that's the only sole purpose that, concern that I have, is let's clean up these audits, because when we get an audit finding, we need to clear that up the next year. If not, we continue, and then that starts to look bad. I just want to make that comment clear. The MOU, I understand, is, right now is us wanting to partnership. It doesn't, right now it's not Main Street's contract, right? So this is just the biannual?
That's correct. Yes.
Thank you.
And I think I would just add to your comments as well. We understand the audit challenges, in particular, Las Vegas has received $1 million of Main Street capital outlay, which is a set aside through the Main Street program for the community. And there's a commitment by New Mexico Main Street to provide another $1.2 million to finish the Great Blocks projects as well. We know very well the challenges with audits in communities around the state, and the state has to deal with those as well. And so we appreciate your attention to the accountability as well as the financial solvency and financial management of the program as well.
Thank you.
We're happy to support anything we can do to help the Main Street program meet their deliverables as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Brief, please. Real quick, Mr. Martinez. So, do you attend meetings at the national level?
Do we have meetings at the national?
Do you attend meetings at the
Yes,
national
I do.
level?
Yes.
Okay. And this is my thing. I've been asking Main Street, our local Main Street, and I don't object their funding and their projects and stuff like that. But I do object is that my ward is not included in the 4 sections of town, historical parts. Okay. Now, I know what your logo says and I know what your mission statement says, but I'm under the understanding that Los Alamos and Silver City, I believe, have gone beyond those boundaries to help other places within that community. Is that true or not?
So Los Alamos has added White Rock as a satellite project to their Main Street district. It's technically outside the district, but has been added. In Harding County, we have 3 villages, Mosquero, Roy, and Solano, that are part of their Main Street district. I don't believe Silver City has added outside of their space, but Deming is working with the community of Columbus to also do the same thing. I think historically, the state Main Street director felt like we will have the conversation about expanding the boundaries when the work inside the core of the downtown is done. And I think the current Main Street director, Daniel Gutierrez, is very open to that as well. He doesn't see the boundaries as an area where things stop just because you're across the street. He looks at the community approach as a whole, right? So I think if you want to engage in the work outside the current district first of all, would be to ask the state to consider, assuming the Main Street program is ready to take that on as well, to ask the state to consider to expand those boundaries, and then negotiate with the city of what resources are needed there and what resources can be leveraged to do that.
Because I think you'd understand as an elected official that I represent, a quarter of the constituents in this community. And when you get 1.5 million here and another 1 million over there, and we're not getting anything in this part of town, it bothers me. And we're all one community, and we should enhance every part of the community. We have business owners throughout the whole community, not only in one certain section. So, I've been working, trying to get it through Main Street here, that, we gotta get included on there. If Shipwreck or other places, what was it, White Rock? Or other places,
White Rock in Los Alamos
can be
and Hardy
included.
County.
I really don't see why we're adjoining to each other. I don't see why we can't be included in that.
Councilor Montoya, I would be happy to open that conversation between Amy and the city manager, as well as New Mexico Main Street and Main Street Las Vegas, to see what would be the next steps to help get that started.
Okay, and I thank you for your understanding, because I've hit some tough walls in the subject, but things need to change, because I know deeply inside that you're helping our whole community by helping these areas.
Right.
But again, we want a piece of the pie on this side. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor? Yeah, just Councilor Mutai, this is just the biannual agreement with the state, kind of including, for a three-way partnership, the actual contract is still come up. Thank you.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council on item number 1?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we renew the biennial memorandum of understanding between New Mexico Main Street and the City of Las Vegas and Main Street de Las Vegas, and approve Resolution 22-37.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Casey. I'll entertain a second, please.
Second.
Second by Mr. Romero. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Martinez. I appreciate you traveling here and being with us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, item 2, review and request approval of the 2022-2023 contract between Main Street de Las Vegas and the City of Las Vegas. Ms. Weiser?
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council.
Welcome, Amy.
Thank you. So you have in front of you the contract for the next fiscal year for Main Street de Las Vegas. And they work closely with Mr. Gutierrez on a revised scope of work, so you'll see the format is somewhat different. There's the core services that Mr. Gutierrez talked about, and then the actual scope of work that they're discussing they'll do specifically for the City of Las Vegas. So my suggestions to you were just to be mindful of that scope of work, as we want to make sure those things can be completed in this fiscal year. I think that some discussion should be had. I know that the board met recently to perhaps change that scope of work a little bit from what you have in your packet, so I'm going to let them speak to that a little bit as we get into it. But they wanted to meet and really make sure that they felt they could meet those deliverables in that scope of work.
Thank you. Thank you. Questions, comments?
Not yet.
Would you like Main Street to Las Vegas to?
I don't know. I don't know what
Okay.
the council's
Well,
thinking.
Let me
If
just
they have
ask
some-
a quick question. I don't know what page it is, but the contract says that we're supposed to provide grant writing support for jointly funded proposals between the city and the Main Street program. And the organizational chart shows that we are removing the grant writing position. And I was looking at the scope of technical assistance that New Mexico Main Street provides, and grant writing isn't one of them specifically. So will we be in violation of the contract if we approve it as it's written, if we can't provide grant writing help?
No, I don't believe so. Either myself can help with grant writing, or our consultant right now, Robert Archuleta, can help with grant writing. We've also been using the COG recently to help us with grant writing, and those are all resources we can work with Main Street to Las Vegas to get those done.
Okay. I just want to make sure that if the contract is going to say that we're going to also provide assistance in whatever way that we are able to do it the way we should.
I agree, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? I'll call for the questions for number 2.
Mr. Mayor, I had a question for Mr. Martinez. As far as funding, we have the oldest city hall in the state, and it's vacant. Through your organization, can we acquire some funding for that, for the remodeling or redoing that structure there?
So the answer is possibly yes, right? I'm assuming it is still a city-owned property.
Yes.
If it's a priority of the city and it's in the Main Street district, the first step is to try and access funding for the planning and engineering documents, and then trying to access the Main Street set-aside funding for the improvements as well. We have seen that in some communities around the state. Belen, I think, and Silver City is the one that kind of come up fresh in my mind. So, but it's probably a multi-year process to get that access to funding for that project.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. The council? Mr. Romero?
And Amy, I had submitted you, I know when you sent me the thing, and I had asked you, more specifically on some of these tasks for the fiscal year 23, what would be the actual deliverable on some of these, because they're pretty vague. One of them was coordinate with the city. Okay, so what's used as the deliverable to make sure, because, what's that entail? So those are some of the questions that I have on the contract, because I'd like to see more, actual deliverables, sign-in sheets. I guess I'll let you answer that one first.
Yes, and the president of the board, Reina Fernandez, just stepped up so she can answer some of those questions for you. We talked about that, and I believe the board met. We talked about adding some actual deliverables to some of those more vague scope of work. So I'll let Reina speak to that a little bit.
Welcome, Reina. Thank you for being here. And thank you for the board being here as well.
Thank you. Yeah, so Amy expressed concern last week after I think she spoke to some of you and asked for some specifics. So we did meet again. And which one were you looking at?
I think number 1 is what I was
There's quite a few of them that there's no, continue to explore the Main Street south of the plaza. So that's you guys could come, and I'm just kind of being realistic. Yeah. You could come to us and say, we explored it, but what do we know that, what physically did you do that we know you explored the idea?
Okay, Well, I think we'll present at our quarterly meetings still about that. Part of it involves going to the state, we've spoken with Eduardo a little bit. We need to kind of look at what that entails and if we're feasible with one staff. Because the rest of us are volunteers, and we've had fundraising limitations for the last year, but I guess presenting at the quarterly meetings would be the one for that one. Let's see, and we did add, I'm not seeing any changes on item number 1, but we looked at item number 3, and we added deliverables on that one, produce sign-in sheets for each cleanup, document each cleanup with photos. We also added another cleanup, so let's see, in 2 district cleanups, 1 in 22 and 1 in 2022.
And not to do this, but I know it's been done in the past. Let's say, for instance, 3, it's tied. I know the mayor has had his cleanups, and I know, in past that's been used as Main Streets. So, me personally, I would like a separate one.
I've always been involved with all cleanups whenever I can.
Yeah.
I can vouch for that.
Yeah.
I know you have, but I guess what I'm saying is the separation of Main Street's cleanup versus the city of Las Vegas.
No, they'll be organized and everything by Main Street.
Mr. Mayor, I would ask that if we could get those deliverables before we do agree on the contract. That's what I would ask.
Is there a time constraint?
Well, the time constraint for
approval of the contract?
We were hoping to get it done tonight. If we need to, the deliverables for that would be the sign-in sheets for each cleanup and document with photos. So I don't know how we would do that before the cleanup.
What could happen, I guess, is you could run through the different numbers, scope of work, and Rena just said nothing changed about number 1 or number 2, but they added some things to number 3. We could keep going through those things that they've added and handle it that way. There aren't too many. Or if you prefer.
Oh, I see what you mean. Sorry, I thought you were talking about
Yeah, I
that
think
item
it's-
specifically.
That is what she's saying imprinted on the contract.
It's in the scope of work. That is the Exhibit A to the contract. Correct. So either you would need to revise it this evening or ask for their updated scope of work and look at it at the next meeting.
And if I may, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
I think that the language is okay because it gives you flexibility in what you can do. If you're too limited and you don't, do it exactly like the wording says, then you're not going to be in compliance. So I think if we leave it, if it says implement capacity building strategies that enhance organizational resources, I think that is clear enough as to what they're going to be doing. And it says to engage the public-private partnerships with city government in the New Mexico Main Street program. That's pretty clear to me. And so I don't know how much detail you want in a contract where it's going to hamstring what they are trying to do. And so I'm reluctant to go that route. It says, ensure adequate organizational progress toward completion of all compliance standards and operating guidelines established by National Main Street. Well, they have those guidelines, they're going to have to follow them. And if they don't, then they're not going to be in compliance. But I don't think we have to list every single thing that they have to do on the contract. So, that's my point. I don't think we need that, we don't have to have everything exactly explained how it's going to be done. We just have an idea that this is what they're going to be doing. They're going to revitalize and support economic growth within, the district, the Main Street district. And I think if they follow the New Mexico Main Street guidelines and objectives, then they'll be completing that scope of work. So I don't see any more detail needed in the language as it is. It's the same as when, some of our employee contracts say, and other things as,
Other duties assigned.
Thank you, yes, I couldn't think of it, I've been out of the loop of making contracts for a while. And so other duties is assigned could be anything. But if they're done, they've completed their contract. There's the same thing here. Develop annual work plans in coordination with the city. They'll be working with Leo, they'll be working with the mayor, they'll be working with the council to develop those work plans. So I don't see why we have to have, the work plan is going to have this, and the work plan is going to have that, and so on. So I think that we need to give the folks an opportunity to work within, that's why it's called a scope of work, not a detail of work. And so I think we should leave it as it is and go from there.
Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of concerns. On item number 2, coordinating with the City of Las Vegas to complete the wayfinding project, when is the deadline on that, or when are we going to complete that project? Because it's been lingering on for years. And we keep adding to it, I guess, and there's no date on here of completion.
So as I reported at the last council meeting, I believe the P&M signs, it's fabricating the signs, they're coming August 28th to walk the locations one more time with City Manager Maestas and myself in Main Street to Las Vegas. And they're going to have them installed by the September 15th is what we're being told.
And what's so hard about putting that on here?
What's that?
What's so hard about putting that on here, on this contract?
The date?
Yeah, completion date.
Because, we learned from last time. We learned from our last year where sometimes we weren't able to meet that deadline. We learned from this year that we want to make sure that we give you enough time to amend that scope of work. If we write in August 28th, we might miss the deadline. If P&M signs change for anything, for any reason.
Now, let me go further. Okay. On item number 5, you have Is that fine? You have the billboards, the murals. On here, again, we're going back to the same issues we were having before, is that you're saying that you're gonna build, do one mural per ward within 18 months. And that's beyond this contract. This is a yearly contract. And if you're chewing more than what you can handle, and it should be that you're gonna do 2 this year, maybe, and 2 next year, so that you don't run into that problem again. And coming back to us and saying, you know what, we just didn't have enough time to do all 4 or whatever. Because right there, it's telling me you're not gonna do them within a 1-year period of this contract, for one. So I'm not sure if you wanna cut back to 2, and say, just to play it safe. And again, you can leave it that way and come back to us and say, you know what, we're not gonna make it 6 months from now, 6 months before, we're not gonna make it, we're gonna have to make an adjustment. And that would be fine.
I will do that.
But it'd be easier to commit to projects that are gonna have an ending date on them, because I'm sure that fiscal impact on them also has a date on it. So I have concerns about those two. That I wish we could have more of a deadline on these projects for 1 year.
Okay.
And if they can't be completed, well, we're gonna do half that project, and then we're gonna do the other half in the next contract. And this way we're not making adjustments. And I see Mr. Martinez shaking his head over there, yes.
Yeah.
Because this way we're not back to what we were last year, where we're trying to approve stuff that hasn't been done yet.
I like that.
We don't wanna go there. So I would encourage that to happen on those 2 items. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
And I will add that with the help of Mr. Martinez, we did talk with the Board of Directors in Main Street de Las Vegas about, at their quarterly reports is the time where they should be saying, okay, it looks like we're not going to be able to do all these things, so we want to kind of amend this a little bit and tell you what we can get done. So they've agreed that they want to try to be better about that quarterly reporting and be more mindful of those things. So.
Yeah, and Amy, I just don't want Main Street coming and asking us for funding, approved funding that stuff hasn't been done yet, or has been done halfway. We gotta keep to that scope of work and make sure that they're not chewing more than what they can handle, and we move forward. Anyway, the other half, we do it the next year and so forth. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the council?
I just want to make a comment, looking at this from, I'm not an auditor, but, Councilor Montero kind of brought up something that, I'll use it as example. Item 2, the past 3 contracts, coordinate with the city of Las Vegas to complete wayfinding projects. Past 3 contracts, okay, so you've been funding, this is the question that I would have. You've been funding Main Street de Las Vegas for 3 years, and it's been coordinated, but when, at what deadline does that finally end? You know what I mean? And I know, the blame can maybe be put on the city or whatever it can, but there has to be some documentation, and I just want to use that as an example where, here we are on 3 contracts and it has that same language, and if somebody was reviewing it, and maybe they will this year. You're paying for a scope of work that hasn't been done in 3 years. There has to be, there has to be that push somewhere where that thing gets done. And 3 contracts in that same item, kind of discouraging. I don't know. And my thing is, it's updated, put some red lines, whatever you guys can. Mr. Mayor, I guess you could call for the question.
Call for the question, please, on item 2.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the 22-23 contract between Main Street de Las Vegas and the City of Las Vegas.
There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Casey. Second, please. No second, motion dies. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, item number 3, request approval of resolution number 22-40, repealing and replacing resolution number 22-03, restructuring of the City of Las Vegas organizational chart. We have our city manager, Leo Maestas, and in front of you, I have added a couple of org charts. There was some additions to that item.
Thank you.
Mayor and Councilor, you should have this other document that kind of summarizes all the deleted and additions to each of the departments. After we brought forth the org charts a few months ago, some things came up that were found in error. So we wanted to correct those along with some other positions that we had to create to continue with the animal care facility. Is there any questions, or would you like me to go through each of the departments on there?
I would appreciate it if you would do each one.
Yes, ma'am. So we currently had a administrative 2 position in the executive office. We'd like to change that to administrative 1 position, administrative assistant 1.
That's not a demotion, that's,
There was nobody in the position.
I know, but, so you're changing it to administrative from 2 to 1?
Yes, ma'am.
Because the person that is there now was an administrative 1 where they were before?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. In the clerk's office, we are adding the community liaison position. In human resources, there is no changes.
Mr. Romero?
On the,
We're going one by one on this.
On the finance department, we added administrative assistant 1 position.
Did you have questions?
I did, but it was opposed to the overall, and I know we're going over this executive, but the main overall organization chart of the city, if you guys could go through that. I just want to make a correction here. Right now, if you look at that chart, you have the mayor, and then the city manager's under the mayor, which is totally wrong. It should be city manager under the mayor and councilors, and also the other 3 positions that fall with that. I just want to clarify that. That makes, I mean, if you look at this flow chart, it makes it look like the mayor oversees the city manager, and the councilors are kind of left kind of with no oversight at all.
You're correct, we'll correct that.
I mean,
There's 2 or 3 pages. Just 2 or 3 pages.
it's the first chart of the main chart.
It's a large chart showing
In your
the whole,
packet.
it's in the packet. It's in the packet, sir.
It's not in my packet.
It's on your packet. So I just want to note that, you know, the 3 appointed positions are under all of us.
Yes, sir.
I can never find it in there.
The software is not always the easiest to manipulate on these work charts, but we'll make those
Mr. City Manager, we don't
changes.
want you to come and say, hey, you don't only listen to the mayor. It's making
That was supposed to be, that was noted last time.
They want you to know who has the power, you know.
So if we go back to the condensed version of all the changes that's on there, the finance department, we added an administrative assistant position. Right now, we're kind of looking at if we can share that position between our office and the finance department's office. Removing the accounting tech position. In the city attorney's office, we added a paralegal and removed the administrative assistant 1 position. Community development, we added a city planner position and assistant to events planner positions. And we removed administrative assistant number 1, a grants writer position, code and compliance officer, and changed the title name to the multimedia coordinator, production coordinator to marketing coordinator, which will encompass a lot of those duties, but have marketing underneath.
So under
Yes, ma'am.
community development, I have a question on city planner. What are the job descriptions, or what is the scope of work that the city planner will do? Is that Maria Spice or
No,
whatever her name
no,
is?
sir. No, sir. We're looking to hire a city planner for that position.
What is a city planner? Why do we need one?
So the city planner looks at a lot of things, development for the city. I wish Miss Amy Weiser was here to give more of the knowledge. She said that position was always in these other government agencies where she works, and it works well. We want to get somebody qualified in that position, and we'll get Miss Weiser to give her take on that position.
And we previously had that position. That was Melanie Gallegos' position previously, and where's the other one?
I kind of have the same question, but also I want to know why we don't have anybody there that is building inspector. We need that more than the city planner, in my opinion, because we're losing money, and people are building, adding additions to their homes, building homes with no permits. And we're losing money on the permits, and people don't get permits because they have to drive to Santa Fe to get them. And they just figure since there's nobody to check on it, they'll just go ahead and do it anyway, and they get away with it.
I can speak to that real quick. As far as a building inspector, they are not allowed to work independently. So we have a building inspector. We have to have a team. We have to have an electrician. We have to have a plumber. And we also have to have someone who's familiar with the environment as far as grounds, drainage, all those things. So even if we had our own inspector, they wouldn't honor our inspections because we don't have the staff. And so when we had hired Ben Minus and wanted to put that in place and I agree we need one. He is, after researching it, inspectors are not allowed to function solely without the support of
Without
the
the other team.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I know it's hurting us and it takes forever to get permits from CID.
And Councilor Casey, that position has been on the organizational chart. I'm not removing it or adding it. That building inspector position has been there and is still there. And so I think it's, as Mayor Trujillo stated, it's also finding someone who's qualified, and I understand that's pretty difficult here, but we could certainly discuss actually advertising that position again because it is currently not advertised. But that isn't a change, it's staying there.
Yeah.
Did you have a question about city planner?
No.
I did.
Okay.
And how do you foresee a person like that functioning in your department?
So right now, we've had Maria Freya, who's been doing the zoning, I believe her title, I don't have my glasses on, zoning and something coordinator.
Right.
So her job description has, if you read it, she's actually supposed to be a support person for a city planner. So she's been doing a great job all these years holding that department together. She never wanted to be in that role, and she's not qualified to be in that role. What I'm asking for is a city planner that has been trained, has graduated from college, has training in being a city planner, who would take over the majority of the duties from Ms. Correa. And then she would become that support person. She loves doing the research, she loves doing the maps, she loves doing all those things. What I need is someone who can handle the city planning side of things. We have a lot of code revisions to do. We have a lot of historic preservation stuff to do. And that's really someone that needs to be trained in those areas to do that.
Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
Moving on to the police department.
Mr. Mestas, wasn't there discussion about having two positions like Maria's? Is that?
There was a discussion at some point, but we did not make any decisions on making two positions for that department, but it has come up. So on the work chart, as long as the position exists, we can have multiple positions. So we have let's say in a police department, do we have a police department?
Or like our transportation department, there's drivers, and we actually have 3 of those, right? Even though the category, whatever the category says. I don't have my glasses on. But yeah, Mr. Mayosis is correct. We could always have 2 planning and zoning coordinators if we needed to. I'm not recommending that at this time. We don't need to, I usually call them planning technicians. We don't need 2 of them. We need a city planner. In the future, we might, but right now, that's not what we need.
And why do we need an assistant events planner?
Right now, some of the events have been postponed. However, Mr. Grego really does need some support when it comes to working on the events, when it comes to planning the events, when it comes to a lot of the contracts and paperwork for the events. So I'm requesting that we get him an assistant to help him with those things. He's working a lot of hours. He has a lot of overtime, and my goal is that if he has an assistant, he can go home sometimes and let this other person handle some of those things and be a backup for him. He doesn't have a backup right now.
So what would the qualifications of the assistant be?
I think we haven't gotten really far to discuss that, but I think mainly it would be someone who maybe has worked in events before or filmed before, someone that has some experience in those areas, as well as being a support person, as far as the contracts and the paperwork go.
Okay. And so do we have, this is the question for the city manager, do we have job descriptions for all of these positions that are being added that we haven't had before?
We have a job description, an existing job description for city planner, but we might want to...
We do,
yeah.
yes.
And we also have it for the multimedia marketing person. We're just kind of changing the title of that. The assistant events one is probably the only one that we don't have a job description to create that and work on that.
And in some of the other departments also, will we need to create job descriptions for?
No. I don't think so. I think for the most part, we have a job description for all of them.
Thank you. Mr. Montero, you have a question?
It's been answered. Thank you. All right.
So moving on to the police department, we created these positions because we took over the animal care facility, which is the Animal Care Center Manager, Animal Care Center Technician, Code Compliance Officer, and Part-Time Communication Specialist. Those are
This
all
communication specialist, what is that?
Dispatcher.
and
Thank you.
dispatch, yes. We have 4 dispatchers currently. That's a very taxing job right now, and we really need to, there's some other individuals that are wanting to apply for those, but they have other positions, and they have some knowledge of dispatching, and we'd like to create those positions to try to work with their schedules. Fire department, we're adding a fire museum clerk, which would help to run the fire museum.
Is there any way that with all the firemen and retired firemen in the community that we can't staff that with volunteers?
So current fire chief has reached out to a lot of the retired firemen that have a lot of knowledge of the facility, and they're willing to do hours here and there, but they're not willing to stay there for 5-10 hours a day. So we would like to create that position.
Is there a possibility of adding other duties to that?
Sure.
I mean, sitting at a desk waiting for people to come into a museum, I don't want to prove another position that's going to be wasted on time.
Right.
And it is being proposed as a part-time right now.
Okay,
Yes, not a full-time.
so it's a part-time?
Yes.
Okay.
In the Public Works division, we added administrative assistant 2, which already we have an individual that is already employed in that position. It was just missed on the last work chart, so we wanted to correct that. And
When we
change.
separated
Yes.
Public Works from Utilities. We just didn't take the administrative aid with them, so.
Mr. City Manager, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So on Public Works, before you go on, you have an employee there, an individual that should probably be under the title of office manager or office coordinator because of the job duties that she has. Is it possible, I think there's already a pay plan position for that, to create that position there?
We could change it to office manager if that's the direction of the council.
I would recommend that and double check with your supervisor there, Mr. Allen.
We've had this discussion before, so it would probably take further discussion.
Okay. Well, what I'm saying is that if there's a position available there too, I mean, why can't they open it up? This is the time to do that.
There isn't an office manager position available at Public Works.
But there is in another department that you can transfer.
In another department?
Yeah,
For office manager?
yes.
I don't believe
Just
so.
the title you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yes, it does exist in other departments, it just doesn't exist in this department. But
Can we change that
we
administrative
can change the
assistant
language.
to?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Office manager?
Yes, sir, thank you. Either office manager or office coordinator, I don't know which one it might be under. You might have both.
I believe in other departments it's office manager, correct?
Thank you.
It is.
Parks and Rec?
In the Parks and Rec division, we'd like to add a service irrigation technician. A lot of other municipalities have this position that not only solely has the experience of working with effluent lines and addressing this, the effluent sprinkler heads and valves that Dr. Spencer spoke of earlier. We'd like to get somebody in that position that has the knowledge. Also adding an administrative assistant 2 position.
Are there people that have that knowledge?
Not currently in the department, no.
I mean, in general?
Yes.
There's
Yes.
someone called a park water or a water.
Yes, they would have plumbing experience and irrigation experiences.
So we're looking for plumbing experience.
Yes, so there's a lot of irrigation technicians out there. I mean, there's schooling for it. Other municipalities have that position already existing. We just need somebody that's knowledgeable to be able to do those repairs in a timely manner in that department.
So we're adding it, but there's nobody there.
There's nobody currently in
We
that
have to
position. We're creating
advertise.
it so we can advertise it, yes, ma'am. Adding administrative assistant 2, adding part-time lifeguard.
Is there an administrative assistant 1?
Yes. So
Why do we
we're
need it?
changing it to an administrative assistant 2.
So we're not adding it, we're changing it.
We're changing it, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so that's.
My apologies, it does say added there.
Okay.
We are adding a fitness coordinator, removing Parks Recreation Deputy Director, removing pool operator, removing youth leader, and changing the title to those last 3 items.
Why are you removing youth leader?
I believe Mr. Aragon can explain, we're trying to have more of a hybrid position so that they have those duties in there, and maybe Mr. Aragon can elaborate on that.
So none of those duties it's gonna fall under the youth coordinator. Before it was in there, it wasn't budgeted, but it was a part-time position. And it was we have not had much success with part-time employees. So it was to help coordinate any after-school program, summer program that we may have.
So, but we're removing it, does that mean we're no longer gonna have youth programs?
We still have our youth program coordinator in the hotel. It's just vacant currently. Our youth coordinator.
So you had 2, you're just removing 1?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you.
Question, Mr. Mayor. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, sir.
I know parks were in real bad shape when we came in 2 years ago. And we've done a lot of improvements due to staff and funding that we had and mayor council direction. But just entertain the idea, would it be wise for us to, because of the plumbing and certification and, sprinkler systems and fencing and all that stuff that needs to get done in these parks, going down dugouts and so forth, putting up lighting and all that, would it be a good idea for us to entertain the idea of transferring all parks to public works and let recreation deal with recreation only, and with programs and swimming and volleyball and all the programs that they have, baseball and the whole works, and let it be just that on itself, and moving the parks over for maintenance purposes, for public purposes, for all that kind of, because streets has, public works has more of the equipment needed for that, and more I would say of the expertise. I'm not sure, I don't know. But would that be something that you'd be interested in entertaining?
We've had the discussion and what it would take to move that. I know that in the discussion with Mr. Aragon, there's a lot of things that cross over. So if they're managing the baseball leagues or soccer leagues or any other of those leagues, their staff goes and does striping or whatever they do on the field. So it's hard to, they want to be able to do X amount of things on the field, but then we have Public Works doing all the maintenance. So it has been a discussion. We haven't moved forward with any decisions on that yet.
Okay.
If Mayor and Council would like to do that, we can definitely give it a try, and if it's not working, we try something different.
I think we should approve tonight what we have and then work on a plan to transition the parks.
Sounds good. I just thought I'd maybe see if it was cost effective for the city or not. Thank you.
Thank you. What's a pleasure of the council? Or is this an action item? I'm sorry. I have to go back to my agenda. I'm way down.
Mr. Mayor, I make the motion to approve resolution 22-40 with the suggested amendments on the main structural.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Second, please.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call us, please.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Next order of business, please. Thank you, Darlene. Thank you,
Thank you.
Leo.
Mr. Mayor, next is request approval of lease agreement with the Las Vegas Youth Soccer League. We have our Parks and Recreation Director, Stephen Aragon.
Again, I'd also like to recognize Mr. Alarid, who's here, puts in countless hours with the soccer teams. Thank you, Mr. Alarid, for all you do for us.
Thank you.
Mayor and Council, just here tonight to present a lease agreement for the Las Vegas Youth Soccer League to have their fall 2022 season. They're looking at utilizing city facilities at Marujo Park, Hanna Park, and Padilla Park for practices, and utilizing Padilla Park, Marujo, and Rodriguez possibly for games. Their games would be on Saturday mornings into the early afternoon, and practices would be Monday through Friday, depending on the amount of teams that they have. On there, we have for the lease agreement to be 150, with the condition that there'll be in-kind services and a report turned in from the league at the end of the year to report the in-kind services provided, along with the maintenance plan agreed upon the league and Parks and Rec. They're looking to start practice on August 22nd.
We would like to change that just so that we can also play some evening games on Sunday. I know you have someone on the Rodriguez Park during the week, but Sunday, that's the only time we have for a couple of our volunteer parent coaches that are only available on a Sunday.
So the addition.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's no problem. Mr. Romero?
I had just one question, and I know, this kind of goes back with the past experience on another one, but just to ensure, we have the agreement, $150, and it can be an in-kind, but I know through Little League, that was supposed to be the same thing, and we had issues where they weren't picking up trash and doing their part. I just wanna, how are we making sure that's gonna get done? Because if we recall, I think we all got calls that, hey, the Little League feels a mess, but their in-kind was supposed to be.
Correct, and then,
so I just.
You're absolutely right.
So I just wanna make sure that we have that, and I guess, Scott, how would we make sure that gets done to where? And I know it's not with you, I'm just, making sure that we.
Can I just add one thing? Well, a couple times we had some of the trash cans that weren't fully, emptied, but we did pick up for our leagues, and we're pretty good about that.
Yeah.
We've never seen any issues with it, but we do request that maybe the trash gets picked up a little bit more so that we can fill up the cans as well. But that's not a problem with us.
I think can we put a revision in the lease agreement that will be bi-weekly?
Is there a way for them to have that maintenance agreement together before they sign this, so that the council can see what that maintenance agreement is? I mean, is it mowing the field? Is it, what is it? I'm not sure.
They need to start practice next week. Or
and then for $150 for 120 days, it's just like $1 a day. If we get dinged on this for an audit, they are not going to accept $1 a day for use of all the fields, just so everybody is aware.
Could you tell them?
I'm not saying do this or don't do this. What I'm saying is if we get dinged on an audit, then the auditors are going to say it's not $1 a day, it's worth $10 a day or $50 a day, and they're going to set the price, and then we're going to have to come up to it. So this is what I try to do in the Little League. Let's set a price, and let's have a maintenance agreement. Let's have all this together so that we can have a potential auditor look at it and say, is this gonna pass muster, rather than dealing with it down the road.
Yeah, well, but if you're also going to have to figure in there the time that they do to prep the parks, that we would have to pay someone.
Sure.
To clean the parks, that we would have to pay someone. That they do a lot of work, and I know the situation, but if you could explain the rationale as to why we can't donate or see it as a donation.
Well, we just can't. We can't let them use city price. It's an anti-donation issue, and it's an anti-donation clause issue. The city can't let them use city property unless it's for fair market price, and that's just an odd. I mean, that's a New Mexico Constitution thing, but it won't come up in a lawsuit. It'll come up in an audit. So I'm all for trying to find something that'll work. I think what we probably need to do at some point is we need to find somebody who's got some auditing experience to look at it and tell us this would be reasonable. I don't know what that reasonable is. Is it $1 a day? Is it $1.05 a day? Is it $5 a day? 50 cents a day? I don't know.
And that's kind of where the scope,
I have
the specific maintenance goes back to the maintenance or maintaining. Well, if they could itemize and say, well, this is, let's say the cleanup is worth 500, field preparation, okay, then that's, a little more, but again, it's kind of like Scott mentioned, is you have to have that plan, you know what I mean?
Can I add something? Some of the things we provide for our parks and for the rec league to even occur is that we have to pay out of our pocket for, the porta potties and facilities like that. We also are paying for the paint, and we're doing our own striping, so we're paying for our own guys to come in and do it. Some of these other leagues have things already kind of lined up and set up like that. Some of them have bathrooms. We don't have any bathrooms at any of the locations. We don't even have a residency. We had an MOU a while ago, and those were pulled, and that's understandable, but we don't have a place like South Commerce or something that we could call actually our park, where we can invest a little bit more into, maybe get something a little bit more permanent or something put down. I'm just putting that out there that we have a lot of costs that we're doing, such as the porta potties, aligning the fields, things like that, and we do clean up our trash and everything.
And just to answer, I think that's what the long-term solution is at Rodriguez Complex is, you know, if it's gonna be everybody, I mean, everybody's gonna have that situation.
Yeah. Mr. Montoya?
Yeah, you know what, I have a couple of concerns. When does your season end? It starts August 22nd?
Yes.
Is it?
I think we have it on there.
120 days.
120 days?
That's what it said. The lease is for 120 days.
So for 100 days, it'll be the last weekend in October.
Yeah.
Is when they're
Okay.
scheduled. We put that for any makeup and with weather considering.
This is what I have told Stephen in the past, is that these are public parks,
Yes.
and they're designed and designated for the neighborhoods.
Yes.
That's the purpose of it. They're not really scheduled for teams or leagues and stuff like that.
Yes.
So we're kind of going away from that to this. And this parks, the other thing is, if the city leases or rents out those parks for certain weekends, for certain events, birthday parties or whatever, I mean, that's how we make money too. So we can't like give up 4 months of our parks to any organization, in one sense. Now, I don't know if this is, and let me tell you, I've been getting phone calls that I guess the fee for the children that play soccer is like $175 per kid?
No.
Oh.
No, it's $80. We had to up our pricing this season only, and normally we're the least expensive sports league.
Okay.
And we used to cover 2 seasons, but because of restrictions on water and everything, and repair, and how parks have been juggled and rejuggled, we've decided not to have a spring season and not to compete against another league such as Little League or anything.
Okay.
And it gives, 1 season for soccer to occur.
So it's $80.
It's $80,
Okay.
and we have a
Now,
sponsorship.
What size
involved.
of field do you need?
Well, we have, I don't have those numbers right in front of me, but we have 4 U6, U8 fields, which are very small fields. 4 of them can fit on the South Commerce Park, which is...
So it's 30 by 40 for 6
by
U
40.
and AU.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yards.
Because what I'm about to recommend is, I have a field there in my ward on Sandoval Street that I think would be the right size for you guys.
It's not a field. I mean, it is a field, but it is not a soccer field. It would need a lot of improvement in order to be used while all these parks are empty. Hannah Park, I've never seen a family eat dinner there. All those other parks, I've never seen. How many kids does a soccer league have?
Well, right at the moment, we only have about 110, 115 that have signed up, but normally it's closer to 300. But
Right.
because of all the disasters and everything, it's kind of hard to say. We also always get last-minute signups. But right at the moment, we have 110, but we'll have more in the next week.
Isn't there one time that you had up to 500 kids?
That is true, yeah.
I'm recommending that you look at that field, and maybe that's something that you would be interested in, that you would want to invest money into, and that nobody would bother you on it, and move forward on that. I mean,
Well,
I don't know if you've seen that field?
I have. Now, one of the fields that we've talked about, and I know this is kind of out of scope, is the South Commerce, the Marujo Park. And that is the one that you see right as you come off the highway or leaving. And if we had some sort of residency at some point there, we could have a lot of our games there, and we could have it very beautiful, a beautification, something that you see as you come into Vegas or as you leave Vegas. What we want to ultimately, down the line, is geared towards being able to have some regional games with soccer. Northern Mexico, in Las Vegas, we do not have any type of regional games that can be held competitively, club, or anything. And yes, right at the moment, we have a water situation, but this would bring in a lot of tourism, a lot more people interested in
And you
games.
can't because the fields aren't regulated.
And the fields
Right,
aren't
aren't regulated.
That is true.
And even that park at Marujo Park, I'm embarrassed to put the kids on that piece of
Yeah, we've
property.
had a lot of problems with holes based upon groundhogs, broken pipes for
It's
the...
uneven.
Yeah,
It's-
and then there's the two properties next to it. One that used to be part of Mr. Rossoil, his little Rossoil place. And I thought that at one point that was going to be delivered kind of like in trade for red tags or whatever to the city that we could possibly expand to make like a little parking or something that gives us restrooms or shelter or something like that for our place. But we're the only league in Vegas that doesn't really have anything that we can call our own little space. And I get it, these are public parks, but if there isn't any leagues or anything for the kids to do, people aren't really going to use them. Or else you're going to have a thing like Lincoln Park.
It's 1.5 months, guys, that we're committing to.
At the Rodriguez field, there is a soccer field in the plan, right?
Yeah,
There's five.
There's five.
Soccer fields.
So right now, I know that's discussion, we're not quite there.
Yeah.
I know that Mr. Maestas will have that discussion with you folks, but we're very close with Rodriguez. And even though in the first phase, it's not going to be a soccer field, but we're going all synthetic turf that we can play all sports on. And we have a safe playing surface and can be hosted.
I just think for now, to get this over with, I think we need to make every effort to get this through. I mean, that's 300 kids playing, sports and are busy, keeping them busy and healthy. To say no to that, I just can't. I can't see it. And I understand the whole audit issue and everything, but when they add up every single bit of income, the time that the coaches don't even get paid.
This is all volunteer.
It's all volunteer. Other cities, their coaches get paid. They have
the presidents paid.
Presidents get paid. Everything. So for soccer's in all the other cities. And so I'm saying we could find a way to balance out that in-kind for that $1 a day or whatever. If you count how many hours they spend prepping the field alone, the parents go out there weekend after weekend after weekend to pull weeds and to cover up gopher holes so their kid's foot doesn't fall in there. I mean, it's not even a safe place. I'd rather give them Hanna Park, or I'd rather give them another park that's not being used, that's never used.
In last season, we did get a pile of dirt, and that was great because we were able to go out there with a wheelbarrow and shovel and cover over the majority of the holes. But that is what we do. We have some very great parents and participation in our Las Vegas Youth Soccer League. The surrounding area, parents come in to help on all levels. At one point, our league was wanting to bring in some water barrels just to water. We had some people that were interested because at one point when it was ran by Streets Division only and we did not have a Parks and Rec representation, we had to bring in other people outside just to mow the lawn, and they were just parents that just wanted their kids to play on a field. Some of the field's grass was so tall there was little bunnies running around in it. It was crazy. And that was the Mountain View Park, Padilla Park, excuse me.
And how much was the contract for?
This one current, sir, $150.
$150?
Yes, sir.
I'll donate $200 to that personally. Does that help any?
Well, I'm not saying don't do it. All I'm saying is that what we'll need to do probably for whatever the next contract is we have with them is get all those details ironed out, what the in-kind services are, try to put some dollar amounts to them, and then have somebody who's got some auditing experience look at it just so they can tell us if we need to go one way or another. I'm not saying don't do it or don't do it, because I don't know $150 is fair market value based on all of the in-kind sweat equity. I'm just saying, in the future, if we're going to do these with the baseball and the soccer and all these, we should really, just to protect the city.
No, I understand that.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not casting any type of judgment on whether to pass this or not.
I'm not about to say no to 300 kids and 600 parents. I'm not. We have to find a way. Those parks are vacant, they're not being used. Everyone should be using those parks.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to defend Hanna Park by saying that, the Las Vegas City Schools serve lunch there to kids during the summer months. They use that for internet service. We have people that go in there with canopies to use that park to have luncheons and birthday parties and so forth. We have people walking their dogs. So
I've never seen anyone in that park.
Well, I live across the street and I can verify that there's people using the park. But either way.
And they should.
The thing is that, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve this lease agreement upon your donation to the organization and also upon the attorney sitting down with these two gentlemen and the city manager and ironing out those things that you just mentioned.
The maintenance stuff.
Yes.
In time.
Yes.
Thank you. There's a motion on the
We
floor.
don't have an audit finding.
Second by Ms. Casey. Roll call, please.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, second by Counselor Casey. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. I'll call you tomorrow, Mr. Alario.
Yes, thank you very
Get you a
much.
check. Thank you, sir. I appreciate everything you do for the
Thank you,
kids.
guys. Thank you.
Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, item 5, request selection of a voting delegate and alternate for the City of Las Vegas that will be attending the 65th Annual Conference of the New Mexico Municipal League. Every year at the New Mexico Municipal League has an annual conference. This is their 65th conference. And during that conference, they have an annual meeting where they elect their officers and board of directors. And we, as a member of the City of Las Vegas, do get a vote at that meeting. So what they're asking for is you, the governing body, to choose somebody that's going to be attending the meeting, get a voting delegate and an alternate.
Who's going?
So we have, I believe we have Councilor Romero, Councilor Montoya, yourself,
I'm going.
and I'm not sure about Councilor everybody.
I nominate Mr. Romero and Mr. Montoya as the alternate.
Okay.
So accept, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Accept, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Oh, look.
I've been there before.
No, I was thinking Cassandra, get an employee.
I don't know who else is going.
Are you going, Cassandra?
I'm going. It's usually the governing body that gets a vote.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
I've been there before, so.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Next
Thank
order
you,
of
Mr. Mayor.
business, please.
Item number 6, review and ranking of draft 2023 infrastructure capital improvement plan and approval of resolution 22-41. We have our community development director, Amy Weiser, and Mr. Robert Archuleta.
Mayor and
Thank
Council?
you. Welcome.
Yes. We have wonderful colored dots for you up here, and what we're asking is for the ranking this evening, as well as the approval of the ICIP as you rank it this evening. So-
Councilors, what's your pleasure?
Always, you have to get the
Do you want to go ahead?
dots.
What do we have to do?
You rank it.
Okay, well, what do you have to do?
Well, Mr. Mayor, do you want me to go over some of the changes we made in the ICIP briefly?
Yes.
Okay. I'll go ahead and start with that. So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for having me. And what we did with the ICIP this year, just as a reminder, is that it is a planning tool. It's a working document, and it can be changed throughout the year. However, we do have to meet a deadline with DFA every year to plan out the ICIP like 4 years in advance. So it really just encourages entities to develop and update their 5-year plan. It's not a funding source, but it does sort of relate to how capital outlay is acquired as well. And it plans out long-term projects that are necessary for the city in terms of infrastructure, building, roads, et cetera, et cetera. We do know that the funding requests statewide and locally often exceed the amount of money that is available through our legislative contingent and the governor's office.
However, this plan is important to at least have some of those items in there in the event that money is requested during the legislative session. Last year's ICIP had 64 projects on it, and it was reduced to 38. Some of these projects were deactivated based on recommendations from the different directors. Some of them were combined into one project, naming all the different projects that needed to be done. Some projects were completed and removed from the ICIP, and some discussions with city manager to reduce the ICIP. These projects aren't gone forever in a rabbit hole.
Can you tell us which ones they are that you removed?
I could talk to about some of them. For example, the Plaza Park reconstruction program was removed.
What was that about?
That's the Plaza Park pavement project.
So did that happen, or what? Why are we removing it?
Yeah, it's already done.
Okay.
Yes.
Next.
Plaza Park electrical was part of that project that was removed. The West Side Farmers Market was removed because it got a new roof and new windows. Carnegie Library received its IT cameras. Dolores Ray Silva Street was completed. Salazar Romero bulletproof vests were purchased for the police department, their vehicles. Also, West National and Keene, Hannah Lighting. So those are just some examples of some of the projects that were removed from the ICIP. Some of the projects that need to remain in there, obviously, the number one would be Peterson Dam, of course. University and Legion, some of those projects are still kind of pending with some of the monies coming from the state. You heard earlier that the Main Street corridor, the Great Blocks, is still pending 1.2 million, so that needs to stay in there as well. We've been talking with New Mexico Environment to doing some remediation, cleanup. That looks pretty positive for Old City Hall, and also written some grants around that.
Has the council ever voted if we want to keep the city hall or sell it or do anything with it? I think it should come up to a vote.
We've done that, I think, in the past, Mr. Mayor, and we've done...
Not this governing body.
All these projects haven't come from Mayor and Council. These are collectively...
I'm talking specifically about the city hall. I don't think we've ever
Mr.
voted.
Mayor, in response to your question, it is in the comprehensive master plan, and it was in a pre-approved ICIP. So the discussions with Old City Hall have been held many times previously.
Yeah. Which are all recommendations, the master plan and the other one.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, if we have money to dump into a building like that, that's fine, but
So we recently submitted a grant to get some more funds to do a plan and design on that building.
so then the city has decided to do something with it, is what you're saying.
That's the hope.
Not for mine.
No, that's the hope with all these projects.
Yeah, but it's not mine.
Well, some of those might not be my projects either, but that's what's coming from the community and different organizations.
I understand.
The hope, Mayor, on this grant is so it doesn't further deteriorate. So we can repair the roof, demo the asbestos building in the back until further directions given.
Well, I think before we put anything on this plan, we should decide whether we want to move forward with it or not. Like this training facility for fire department, the Luna Vocational Technical Institute has a new fire science program. There's no need to create a facility for for training.
The hopes on that, Mayor, was to not only create a facility that the whole region can use, because right now everybody goes to Socorro for that training. The hopes would be that the whole region or this part of the state would come to our facility, which would in turn help our economic development.
But why aren't we working with Luna to develop a program that they already have? They have a degree in fire science.
So the training facility would actually have a tower and things that the fire, not forest fire would do training, but more for municipality fire departments. Smokehouses, fire tanks that are burning, those types of things would be.
Mr. Mayor, in discussions with Chief Span regarding the regional training facility and the previous ICIP meetings that we had. It would be, as per the discussion, a regional facility for the northeastern part of the state.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is $500,000 isn't gonna do it. Are you asking for more?
Well, if there needs to be more money put in the ICIP, that's a quick fix. I mean, we can add more funding.
Because that won't cover.
But I believe the issue was more around plan and design, using that first set of money for plan and design.
Gotcha.
And on top of that, Mayor, I think in conversation, there was some federal funding available. I don't know if it still is, but there was discussion on that, and that's one of the reasons why also it came out of, I think this goes back as far as even Chief Montoya trying to work on it, so it's something that's kind of been in the planning discussion. But at the end, it's going to come up to what we prioritize as governing bodies.
Right.
So with that, I think we kind of
I think we should
get to that.
get to that point right now.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, what I have here is just 10 dots each. Go up to the ICIP, which blown up, and put your dots on your most important projects that you feel are the most important. And then after that, I will take the ranking and I will go tonight and I will re-rank it according to what you rank it
All right,
at.
let's do this.
And then in the morning, I will submit it to DFA.
Do I get a vote?
Yes.
Thanks. Thanks. Any color anywhere?
Any color anywhere.
Thank you.
It doesn't matter.
Vote, Legion vote shouldn't be there, it's already been approved.
And Mountain View Road?
We still have a section.
Funds are already set, both of them,
Which one?
Mountain View and Legion,
Well, there still needs a portion to be finished on Mountain View.
but the money's already been appropriated. Hold that side.
I thought that was one of the ones we did.
So do we get to Councilor Breeze dots or?
Or can we put 2 dots next to the one we
It's right here.
Yes.
You can.
You can put all your dots on one there if you want.
I should.
Thank you.
Put all my eggs in one basket. All right. How come you gave Barbara 2 sheets of dots?
I'm special.
So let's say that we don't have, she's, we still need extra estimates. What is that? To do it in that light. Well, they're just gonna be rewrapped, so however all these will still stay on there.
Did we
but they'll
put,
start at 1, 2, 4, all of these.
No.
Public Works
It's combined into one.
I should have brought my signature pen.
It's Project 8 roadway maintenance.
I'm very picky about my specific.
We have that portion. The total amount is all the way to the right. Well, it's not only asphalt, it's other, it's all underway. You're trying to consolidate the body of this, if you're trying to, the body of this, it's all
Take your things here.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
While they're ranking, I would just like to thank Mr. Archuleta. He put in a lot of work to get this done. And,
Thank you.
And he'll be working tonight as well to get it done, so.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll mention it.
Well, councilors, if anything, I do want to add to it, Mr. Archuleta, I know that you came in as a consultant, but you really put a good name in speaking with state officials. They've really been very appreciative that we brought you on board and have kind of addressed. I did sit down with Senator Campos, and he was happy to hear that a lot of the items that we had, that he always gets asked over there, how come we don't have our projects done? And you narrowed down that list. So I think in the eyes, this next legislative session, in the eyes of the legislature, LFC, we're going to look very, very good to you. So thank you.
Thank you. So in closing, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, some of these projects have to stay on there in the meantime, even though there is some money available to them. And then they're removed when the project's completely done, like with the Plaza Park project. There are often times where other entities, other state agencies ask that things be on the ICIP, even though it's not coming from DFA. So it's a back and forth kind of thing with different entities, but we try and get it to be the most advantageous ICIP that we can get. I will rank it tonight, and then Amy and I have it. We have some of the forms that Leo signed, and we'll be uploading it tomorrow. The deadline is Friday, so we've met our deadline. So all we need to do now is approve the resolution, and we'll be good to go.
Motion.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion, Mr. Mayor and Council, reviewing the ranking of the draft of 2023 Infrastructural Capital Improvement Plan, ICIP, and approve resolution number 22-41.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor by Montoya, second by Ms. Casey. Roll call, please.
Councilor Romero?
Yes.
Councilor Montoya?
Yes.
Councilor Casey?
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Montoya, second by Councilor Casey. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
And thank you, Mr. Archuleta, for all the good work, and actually, this is really nice way to do things.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Appreciate it.
Next item is 7, discussion on the Litherland land donation and the city's future purpose for the property. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. So the Litherlands approached the city via mail, asking us, they're willing to donate the property that's across the street from the Litherlands home on 7th Street, right across the street from the Dairy Queen and Lowe's on 7th Street. And it's a pretty big property. They sort of want to know if we're interested in having that property and what the intention would be. I know that we don't have a dog park. I thought maybe that would make a good dog park area. I also thought that for the greater memory of the Litherlands, who contributed greatly to the community. It would be an opportunity for us to recognize their service to the community. I know Mr. and Mrs. Litherland both gave a lot of time to civic organizations and to Girl Scouts. I think Ms. Litherland was a den mother for over 700 Girl Scouts in the area, or probably more throughout her time. And so I just thought we'd discuss this and see if it's something the city wants to do, accept the property and come up with a plan, or let the Netherlands know that we thank them for the thought, but we're not interested. So, Mr. Romero?
So the property, it's just basically the donation of the property, and we have to.
They're donating the property and giving $75,000 to,
Help develop.
help develop it.
And I did talk to Miss Litherland's son, and I told him about my idea about the dog park, and he went ecstatic because they always had a dog and loved their pets, and he thought that was super exciting.
I think we should accept the offer and take the $75,000 that they're being so generous with. And, even if we don't develop a dog park right away, at least we have the property. It'll be something that we can add. There's nothing really there in that section of town. And so I think it would be a wonderful asset and good use of that property instead of just holding campaign signs for people that aren't supposed to put it there. And, actually have something nice that people can go to, maybe with a commemorative bench to the Litherlands or something, and have a nice dog park there. And I think that a dog park would probably be less expensive than trying to, develop a city park. Yeah.
Mr. Romero?
And I hate sometimes, I wish I had a zipper sometimes. But I have to speak my mind sometimes, and I appreciate that. I know there was discussion a while back, and how many parks we have in the city, and it's, again, we just went over, our flow chart and what employees we need. 75,000, I'm thinking, okay, we have a dog park, the maintenance, all this, and we continue to expand on parks, but all we're doing in the long run is kind of hurting the maintenance on other parks within the community. And me personally, I'd hate to, I like the idea, but you guys have gone to a dog park, even in Santa Fe. The weeds are overgrown, people don't pick up after their dogs, and it's I'm embarrassed to even, not embarrassed, but I wouldn't even take my dog as dirty as they are, and I'm just looking I'm just, put his name to a dog park that's full of, all that, stuff. To me, that's not something I would, it'd be a nicer park, but then we get into the issues of maintenance, having another park. Steven, you're gonna be in charge of dog parks too? I'm just being a realist over here, and I like the idea of the property and that, but I just don't, there's so many other focuses that we need within parks that it's a hard bite, and I think the family would have, if we have a 20-year vision, I just hate to say yes and then they expect something up quick, and I get Councilor Casey, a plan, but I'm just throwing this out here. That's kind of my idea.
Okay. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor. I've thought about this, and, I have the same feelings of Councilman Romero about a dog park. But do we have to specifically say what we want to build there, or what we want to have? So we can have the property without purpose right now? Because I'm thinking, maybe a sub-police station would be good in that area. In the future.
It's a good idea too.
Because it's big enough and it's small enough for like, small station on this side of town. We can house, a couple of officers. But if we don't have to dedicate it to any particular purpose, I mean, I'm in favor of obtaining the property and then figuring out what's best for the community and the residentials and everybody in that area, since it is a business.
And no matter
Because-
what we do with that property, I would like to name something
Yeah.
after the Litherlands.
Yeah, because I know, myself, I knew him and I grew up knowing him, and, they were lovely people, loving to this community, left and right. I mean, they supported the schools, they supported anybody, really, that would ask for help, and whenever they saw anybody that needed help, they would go help, not even asking. So I really, appreciate the family wanting to do something as great like this, and adding some money to it to begin with. But right now, that's the only thing that I can think of that we could probably use that property for, if that would be something that we'd be interested in. But I would love to accept it and figure it out later as to what can be done with it. And like you said, Mayor, we do a dedication to them and the whole works, because they deserve that.
All right, thank you.
Was there a stipulation on it or no?
It didn't sound like it, except it sounded like they would be interested in knowing what is going to happen to it.
And I think they should have input
Yeah.
when we get to that point.
Yeah.
And say we'd like to have your input, these are some of the ideas that we have, could
Yeah.
you tell us what you think would be most appropriate to honor your parents?
All right.
I'm more in favor of that. It just, I mean, if it's us, the idea was to donate it so it becomes a park, I have no issues on that. Other things that are more useful.
It wasn't specified that it had to be a park.
No.
I just thought about, we don't have a dog park in town. So, all right, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion to adjourn.
I think we had executive session.
Motion to go into executive session for legal pending litigations.
Litigation, according to NMSA 1978-1015-1, date H7.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Casey, second by Mr. Montoya. We are now in executive session. Thank you.
Chuck?
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to go back into executive session.
I move that we go back into executive session after having discussed possible litigation. No decisions were made, no votes were taken.
Thank you. Second, there's a motion by Ms. Casey, second by Mr. Montoya. All in favor?
Aye.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion by Ms. Casey, second by Mr. Montoya. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.